You might as well start the video. Hey, Lauren. Thank you for contacting me about that crazy posting stuff.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm not sure that I've got that sorted out yet, but nobody else is. My son called me from Seattle and said somebody from Far Rockaway, New York, called me to tell me that I was sending out strange things.
Oh no, that's terrible.
I mean, it just went full circle, and then you emailed me, and a couple of other people emailed me, a friend from New Mexico, and I'm like, oh my God.
Oh no.
And I was going out to when I was this was all going on, I was going out to a drive-in in Glastonbury. Have you tried that at all?
No, the new one?
Oh, you've got to do it. It is such, oh my God, it is so good. You have to book tickets online. It's over at the Elks Club in South Glastonbury. You go by Hope and Mainwell or whatever, or to whatever it is. There on the corner, past East Cotton Hill Park, and it was great. We saw Shrek, which we've seen 300 times, but
right, but it's so cute.
And adult beverages at the Elks. You can get suppers from the Spicy Green Bean. I guess that's the restaurant. So you could order things. People did bring, beverages, and they did bring drinks for the kids, but it was great. It was a lot of fun. I went with Kate and my granddaughter.
That's so nice.
The only thing you need to do is bring a blanket and hunker down because it got cold.
I bet it did. We did a drive-in when we went to Maine over the summer, and we just had so much fun. It was the kids' first time doing a drive-in. We put them in the trunk.
Oh yeah.
It was so cute. They
loved it. Yeah. All the kids that were there were just having a good time. And the parents were too. Some parents hadn't been out of the house in weeks, so they were like, oh, this is really a treat.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're able to be safe and be far apart from everybody.
Yeah, and we were all socially distanced. So yeah, it was good. It was good. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Good. Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
Lauren, I can't believe you would have put your kids in the trunk rather than pay for them to get in.
We put my brother in the trunk at Woodstock.
Oh, Meg, you went to Woodstock?
I did, and we stuck my brother in the trunk to sleep in the trunk because my sister forgot to pack the tent.
Wow, Meg, you're pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe you went to Woodstock.
Oh, I did. I used to go to Woodstock. We used to go to the Newport Folk Festival. I saw Arlo Guthrie and Pete Seeger and Joan Baez and Bob Dylan.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Must have been quite the experience.
Oh, it was, because
hey,
if you go to the folk festival now, it's very tame, and I think we all slept in the sand dunes around the folk festival. Yeah, back in the day.
Wow. I'm getting a kick out of everybody signing on.
How did everybody do with distance learning today?
So thankfully, my kids were in school.
Oh, good.
Interestingly, my kids had to stay home and quarantine yesterday because my son got sick last week and we had to have him COVID tested. So fortunately, he was negative.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Yes, secured or guess?
Just secured, yeah. Either one, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to Sharon because I've had the privilege of working with my granddaughter from the Middletown school system. And she's got 3 days of remote learning, and she goes Monday and Thursday to school. Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's no joke.
No, it's not. It's not.
No.
And I hope, and I said, I just talked to Sharon. She was trying to figure out how to get into the building. I said, I hope Portland is not doing what Middletown is doing, because Middletown is not, it's asynchronous, and it is check in the morning, check in the afternoon, and then do your work. And it's a holy mackerel.
I hate to tell you, Meg, but that's what we're doing.
There's
Wednesdays are good, but that's what we're doing. Yeah. It's not easy.
It's not. I only have one, and we set up I took my whole desk computer thing apart. I gave her the whole area, so she comes to school here where I'm sitting, and we printed her schedule, and I went to the library and I got books. So, and not that I need any more books, but I went and I got books that she can read, that she's interested in. It's a real challenge.
It sure is.
Learn something, but I think it's a real challenge.
Yep.
So that being said, I sympathize with all of you moms and dads out there that are, and grandmas and grandpas that are doing this. Yep.
Yeah, and then when with the 3 kids kind of just makes it really complicated. You know, I have my phone alarm set for all the different meetings that
I
they
did the
have.
same
And,
thing.
yeah.
I've got Google telling me it's time to go back and go to open Zoom meeting with the teacher. I know.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It is. It is.
But
It's
it works.
a
That
crazy
works.
time.
That's about the only thing that worked last week was the Google alarms.
Yep.
Everything else was, oh, public meeting. We have to stop. Okay. Sorry, Sharon.
What?
Huh?
Me? I had nothing to do with that.
Well, that's some good feedback.
Somebody has some, yeah.
Not me. I have perfect speakers tonight. Perfect headset.
Okay. Do we have everybody? Chris Darby is in. Hi, Chris. Thank you.
Hello, yep.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the
Get over.
Pledge of Allegiance.
My dog
Joining
is
us is
pledging.
Rosie.
Yeah, that's Rosie pledging. You can mute me if you have to.
Pledge
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the United
United
States of
States of
America.
America,
and
to the
to
republic,
For which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, before we move on to the agenda, I have just a short announcement I'd like to make for everyone who's joining us tonight on Zoom. I want to welcome you all. I'm Sharon Peters. I'm the chair of the Portland Board of Education.
sit down.
We're happy that you've chosen to join us as we discuss the district's accomplishments, discuss information, and make policy decisions for the effective operation of our school district. Tonight is our regular meeting of the board where we conduct the board's business of governing the school system. Everything we'll be discussing and making decisions about has been publicly posted as required by law. We do not make management decisions or solve individuals' problems. While our meetings are open to the public, this is not a meeting with the public. We welcome comments from the audience confined to the times designated in our agenda. Our meetings are recorded, and if you choose to address the board, please be sure to provide your full name and address. Our meetings are effective only if we're able to hear each other. So I'm going to ask that all of your cell phones be muted, and please don't speak when someone else is speaking. Decorum and courtesy are essential elements of civil discourse, and one of our goals as a board is to foster such discourse, and not just here, but throughout the district. We welcome your input, and we're happy that you chose to join us this evening. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. Meg Scatta.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Approval of the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda from tonight.
Is
Second
there a second?
it.
Tim, all in favor? Unanimous?
Aye.
Sorry. Can I make one note about our minutes from last meeting? Because
We've already approved the consent agenda.
Okay,
Is it
Laurel, I think it was
typographical?
taken care of. I mentioned it to Meg and she added it.
it was fixed. Okay,
It was fixed. It was fixed. I meant to mention that to you earlier.
thank you.
Okay, next is audience of citizens. Do we have any members of the audience who'd like to address the board?
Hi, can I start?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Can you have your address, please, Ms. Trojanowski?
It's 77 Old Marlboro Turnpike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share some personal reflections on the new hybrid school system. First, I really want to start by saying, as a fellow educator for 16 years and a mom of 3 kids under 10 years old in the Portland School District, it's important to mention that these thoughts that I want to share with you and the suggestions that I have come from the lens of a teacher first and the parent second. Second, I also want to make it very, very clear that I regard our Portland teachers with the utmost respect and admiration. None of these thoughts that I'm about to share are in any way a criticism of any instruction. Rather, my sole purpose here is in sharing this is simply in hopes of finding a way to make their job more possible and the jobs of parents and caregivers who are home teaching more successful, especially in the lower levels, as that's where my kids are. I feel like the hybrid model has had many successful moments and also a lot of pitfalls. The smaller class sizes, I love. They really allow for a more personalized experience. As an educator, we've always known smaller class sizes are beneficial, and now we can do it. Each lesson is able to go that much further. And I think that's really important. That said, differentiation for students who need more support, as well as students who need a further challenge, can now be accomplished much more easier. In the past, in a class of 20 plus students, if you had students who were exceeding expectations, they were often neglected due to the amount of time and energy and support that's necessary for students who need the additional intervention. That's just the reality. And now this has given us the opportunity to remedy that. One idea, I feel, to meet the needs of those individual students can be to assign instruction through different grade levels. For instance, if a student has exceeded expectations on a pre-assessment for, let's say, math, that student can now, instead of participating in that student's class for math sessions, they could possibly join in a higher class so that they can get a more challenging experience in their math class. The anonymity of online instruction allows that to happen and really works in favor of the student. And it really goes both ways. Students who need extra help, let's say if you have a fourth grader who is doing math on a third grade reading level, they can join in a third grade class, and that's okay. We can now meet the needs of those students much more clearly with a much more focused instruction. And with the mask of online instruction, it really, allows that anonymity. And as long as teachers are given the time and guidance to vertically plan, students can move fluidly between classes. This costs the district nothing, but can be accomplished and can really help a lot of students. My next point is time to plan. I feel that, seeing what's happening is a result of lack of planning. Being able to move fluidly between online and in-person instruction at the moment is less than adequate. It's simply unreasonable to expect teachers to simultaneously teach in person as well as online. And I understand there's various scheduling going on there, but when remote teachers are given the time to plan with the rest of their grade level cohesively, all kids then can receive the same instruction. Whatever instruction is delivered in person, the same thing has to be delivered online, so that in a hybrid model, when they move from the classroom into that online instruction, they're able to do so without issue. Parents and caregivers are struggling without a comprehensive plan for each day that's filled with the same instruction that they would receive had they had a dedicated teacher who's consistent, who has a consistent plan each day. We're living in capricious times. It is irresponsible to plan a return to a normal school schedule without recognizing that another change could be looming in the not too distant future. In preparation for the unpredictable storm, providing teachers the opportunity and time to plan is just essential. So whatever teachers are teaching online, they need to be able to plan with those teachers that are in the classroom. Currently, that plan must also include parents and caregivers. Again, it is unreasonable to expect parents to think like teachers. This takes years of practice, specialized degrees, focused professional development, not to mention years of on-the-job experience with many different kinds of learners. That's what makes teachers professionals in their fields. Providing parents and caregivers with specific rubrics to measure success is absolutely essential. For example, if my kindergartner's assignment, and this is actually a real assignment, is to read Pete the Cat and then color a picture to go along with the story. As a parent, I need to know what's the criteria that indicates that my son or daughter has been successful. A quick checklist can indicate the goals of the assignment. Step number 1, can my child identify the word the 5 times in the story? Step 2, can my child identify the main character by coloring him in the attached picture? Now the parent or caregiver can quickly determine if what they did was successful or not. This is the way a teacher is trained to think. It's not the way a parent approaches reading and coloring, because they're not aligned with the long-term purpose of the assignment. A parent and caregiver's goal may just be to cuddle and snuggle. That's what I love. They're not likely aware of the educational value and using the right terminology like main character. This is something that needs to be pointed out and explained to parents and caregivers. This brings my final suggestion. Parents and caregivers need to have some sort of a morning meeting. Please consider the possibility of meeting with them online to give a quick rundown. And that means quick. This should not be more than 15, possibly 20 minutes. Also should be staggered for different grade levels. So if you have children in various classes or various grades, you can check it out. Any additional information should also be no more than a few minutes long. Parents and caregivers could be working or possibly attempting to start multiple children on their remote learning day. It's unreasonable to ask any more time in the morning. This session should also be recorded. It's very easily done. We're recording right now. That way, parents and caregivers can access that if they miss the information. And maybe this might be a great idea to just create a Google Classroom that is just for the caregivers. If we have a parent caregiver Google Classroom, we can post those recordings in there. Schedules can be posted, meeting times, and also links can be posted. It's a place to check in with parents and caregivers as well. You can give a Google question that asks them consistently, how are things going? What can we do to make you a better teacher? It helps keep track of things much better than the melee of emails that's coming through at this time. It's just, crazy right now, the amount of emails that we're getting, especially with multiple children. In conclusion, these ideas are all, again, free. There's nothing that is unreasonable or costly involved, but rather it's a consistent, solid plan that begins the process of healing or even curing some of the problems that have plagued our schools in the past. As a teacher, parent involvement and sharing the responsibility of teaching kids has always been a key focus. In fact, it's part of the teacher evaluation system. This problem is not novel, but our time for real solutions that are feasible and can help structure a stronger family-school relationship is finally here. I do not view the school chaos this pandemic has caused as problematic. Rather, as I've always taught my students, problems are simply opportunities disguised in turmoil. All of us are trying desperately to return to an overburdened, inequitable system because we are so focused, trying desperately to return to that. We're so focused on the problems that online and hybrid learning brings, rather than seeing them as what they really are, opportunities to improve a failing system. The hybrid model can work, but it takes, on our part, out of the box thinking and creativity and a sense of risk taking. After all, success is not without the company of failure. The success of this moment will be measured by our response to that failure. We can retreat because of our desire for our previous normal, or we can prevail in order to reinvent and reimagine a system that meets those demands that we place on our schools. I feel that there's a lot that we can do here, but we need to start working on those problems and moving forward instead of constantly trying to move backwards into the past. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to address the board?
I couldn't hear. Did you hear?
No, I couldn't hear either.
No one else.
Okay, thank you. Right. Student representatives reports. Who do we have tonight? Oh, everybody's here. Sean, you want to go first?
All right, yeah, I'll go ahead. All right, so we have weekly spirit weeks starting up this week, organized by Student Senate. And how that works is students are taking a picture of themselves, like wearing clothes that match up with this week's theme. And then it'll get sent to one of the school secretaries and put into the school newsletter. And we're planning on having an in-school spirit week later in the month. We're also having class elections on September 30th, and class meetings are being held virtually, and the first one is tomorrow.
Thank you. Did I see Justin? I thought I saw Justin.
Hear me?
Oh, there you are. Hi, Justin.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so turn that up.
Sean covered pretty much all of the things that have been happening lately. I just like to add on the athletics side, I know that fall athletics is something up for discussion tonight, but I am pleased that we've been able to continue practices for soccer and for cross country and even some conditioning for football, despite the challenges that they face with their season. So yeah, on the athletics front, I think players are happy that they're getting to get out there and be active and kind of have that as the end of their school day in a more active mindset and unwind. So yeah, I just like to report that I think it's going well, and I'm glad that we found a way to still have fall athletics.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next we have communication and updates.
Okay, I have one communication. I received a letter of retirement from Susan Rowe, who was a longtime employee of the district. She was with us for 31 years. Most recently, Sue was one of our secretaries at Valley View Elementary School. So Sue has earned a richly deserved retirement, and certainly we all wish Sue well as she heads off to enjoy those retirement years.
Great.
All right.
Okay, and you're next too.
So superintendent's report. So let me bring you up to speed on a couple of things. I want to start with the most recent report that is dated September 8th from the Chatham Health District. This reports the number of positive COVID tests in the community. So for the month of August, there were 1,061 tests conducted in the town of Portland. 0.6% of those came back positive. As of September 8th, 186 tests were performed in positive, and there were 0 positive tests. Now, based on some information I have, I believe that number is going to go up slightly, but right now for the months of September and August, the numbers are still looking really good in Portland. Overall, in the Chatham Health District, the positivity rate for August was 0.5%. It has ticked up, though, for September. It is now at 1.1%. So we're above that 1% number, not by a lot, but certainly something we want to definitely keep an eye on. So in the schools, we've started our first full week of school. We had 2 4-day weeks. Right now, I can report that thank God, we've had 0 positive cases reported in our schools among faculty, staff, or students. So for the first 2 weeks of school, 0 positive cases. We do have currently 4 students who are quarantining, and these are throughout the schools, K through 12, who are quarantining because they've had an exposure either in their home or in their community to someone who is known to be positive. So if contact tracers get in touch with you and say you've been in contact with somebody who has a positive case, you are required to quarantine for 14 days. Currently, we have 4 students who are quarantining because they have had that exposure. We have 1 staff member who is quarantining because the individual had a positive exposure in their home. To my knowledge, the staff member and the students have not tested positive, but this is still evolving and tests are pending. And 1 staff member in the district is quarantining because the individual traveled to a state that is on the travel ban list to care for somebody and can't come home and is now subject to the travel ban. So all in all, things are okay. You know, we don't have any known positive cases that have been in our schools, which is certainly something that we all hope and pray continues. As far as what we're seeing in our schools, I'm going to bring you up to date. You know that we've trained all of our faculty and are very aware of and possess the ability to identify signs and symptoms of COVID. You know, we have asked our parents and our faculty and staff to be very mindful of their health and well-being in the morning, and if you're not feeling well, to stay home. To date, so far, after the first 2 weeks of school, the high school has had to send one student home for exhibiting signs and symptoms of COVID. The middle school has had to send 5 students home. Brownstone has had to send 3 students home. Gildersleeve has had to send 5 students home. And Valley View has had to send 2 students home. Most of those students have seen their doctor, and the doctor has diagnosed their issues as something unrelated to COVID. And those that had to be tested, the test came back negative. So again, the good news here is that so far, as the school year gets underway, we have not had any known positive COVID interactions or exposures in any of our buildings.
Good.
With that said, we are very much aware of there are over a dozen schools statewide that have taken various actions, including in some cases closing, because there were positive test results from either students or members of the faculty and staff in the buildings. Now, what we have been learning a lot from those experiences, and one of the things we're learning from the administrators, the superintendents, the area health districts that are dealing with those, is that the decision about whether to close, if there is a positive case in your building, is very closely linked to the extent to which you are able to cohort your students. So if you have a positive case in the building, what happens is the health departments come in and aggressively engage in what's called the contact tracing process, right? So if they are able to report that the exposure and the individuals who may have been exposed are limited, then just those individuals would be subject to a quarantine, and you wouldn't necessarily have to shut the entire school. So my suspicion is, and from what I know firsthand, although I don't know every case, is that schools that are having to close, it is because they either hadn't been able to cohort well enough or because the exposure wasn't isolated and they couldn't tell exactly who might have been exposed. My takeaway from that is that certainly in grades K through 8, the cohorting that we're doing has put us in a position that if we have a positive case, the contact tracers would be able to very quickly identify the students in the building who could potentially be exposed, and that we wouldn't necessarily have to shut the school. We could very quickly isolate just the individuals who might potentially have been exposed. The only exception is the high school, of course, because we're not able to cohort students at the high school. So my initial takeaway from the experience of other districts in the state is that cohorting is very important. I think we've put in place the right measures. We haven't had a positive case yet, which is the very good news, but we are prepared to respond if and when we do experience a positive case in the buildings. So that's the current status of that. I'll stop there and see if are there any questions about? All right, a couple more I want to just bring you up to date on. So the state has asked us to engage in a new reporting requirement. The state is asking us every week to report to them 2 things. The number of students in our district who are engaging in complete virtual learning, right? So the students who have chosen not to return, they want to know that number of students, and they want to know the number of those students who have not engaged, right? So they're asking us to keep track of our students who are in person in the hybrid model, our students who are engaged in our Portland Virtual Learning Academy, and we're asked to report every week now the number of students engaged in the Portland Virtual Learning Academy who have not logged on or participated in any way. So last week we reported for the first time, and this week we'll report again tomorrow. This week, I'll be reporting that we have 222 students in grades pre-K through 12 who are engaged in the Portland Virtual Learning Academy, and we have only 2 students who are not engaged, right? So we do know who those 2 students are. We are reaching out to them. My commitment is that we have all 222 students engaged, or as close to that as possible every week. That's interesting. That's something we'll be keeping a very close eye on. Some general school updates. I did visit each of the schools today and spoke with the principals. Things are going really well. Across the board, what I'm hearing from all of our principals and teachers who I'm interacting with is that our students are doing an exceptional job with wearing masks, following the social distancing requirements, engaging in the cohorts effectively, and our kids are committed to keeping each other and themselves healthy and safe. I think it's wonderful. I haven't had a single report of any act of insubordination or student not willing to comply with the mask wearing and other things that we're doing. So I'm really proud of our students. I think they recognize the seriousness of this and they're doing all the right things. So that's the really good news. The other thing I just need to recognize is that this is really hard. This is a difficult year. I think you just heard in the audience of citizens that, yeah, this hybrid is not easy. We are asking a lot of our teachers, right? Our teachers are being asked to manage in-person students, distance learning day, and students who are home remote learning. And many of our students, our teachers are teaching 6 sections in the Portland Virtual Learning Academy. I will say this, it is a lot for teachers. We are asking a lot of them. Their spirits are still high and I see them working hard, but this is very new and it is very challenging. And I think we really, owe it and need to recognize the hard work that they're putting into this. And I'm very proud of them. I think they're really keeping it together for us. Certainly the bottom line is we all want to be back. We want our kids back. We want to be back fully. We want our normal lives back. We want this pandemic to be over. But until that day, we're gonna do the best that we can, and I'm confident that Portland's teachers are rising to the occasion. What we're hearing from parents is generally, I would say 80% of the feedback we get from parents now is laudatory. It's appreciative. It recognizes these unique circumstances. But I will say that many of our parents who are working from home, especially those parents who have younger children, they are continuing to struggle. Right? That younger children who aren't as independent struggle with the hybrid learning days and do require a lot of attention and support from their parents. We recognize that. And that is putting a strain on some of our working parents who are trying to manage the demands of working from home while also supporting their students in the hybrid. So again, my feedback to everybody is let's just hang in there. Hopefully we'll be back together fully as soon as possible. But sort of with a shared commitment, some flexibility and resolve, we're going to get through this together. So October 6th is our next board meeting. I will come to that meeting with a recommendation for you about whether we return fully or whether we stay in hybrid. I don't see us going back to remote learning unless we have had a terrible Labor Day weekend and the numbers spike up terribly in our community. We do want to develop a process to, is that some feedback?
No.
Okay. To solicit some input. So what I am going to put together is I'm going to be surveying our parents again. I'm going to ask our faculty to give me feedback. I'm going to do some focus groups with our faculty over the coming weeks. And I'm going to share all of that data back out with the Portland Reopening Committee. And it is my expectation that I'll be able to come to you on October 6th with a recommendation that will either be to remain in hybrid or to fully reopen. And of course, a lot of that will be informed by the ongoing transmission rates that we're seeing in the community. And then the last thing I have for you tonight is a piece of good news. This is late breaking. I literally just got the email. I'll read it out to you. So This email is from John White. John White is the food services manager with Sodexo, and I'll just kind of read for the email. This is for the whole community too. We'll put it out in our weekly e-blasts, but free school meal waiver extension. So pursuant to the authority of section 2202A of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and based on the exceptional circumstances of this public health emergency, the U.S. Department of Agriculture released a waiver that allowed school districts to offer free meals to all students through December 31st, 2020. We are pleased to report that at this time, the Portland School District applied for and received the approval, and starting Monday, all students will be able to receive free breakfast and free lunch here at the school. So that's a continuation, and we're very happy that we're able to continue to support the nutritional needs of our families.
Great.
Wonderful.
That's really great news.
That's wonderful, because parents are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Oh, good. I do have a suggestion that we also, in your survey or focus groups, talk to students perhaps at the middle school and high school level and see how they feel about their distance learning situation. They can give us some input that that perhaps parents are not able to because the parents are working and kids are supposed to be pretty independent at that point. So if we could find out what kids think about what's been going on for the last few weeks, I think that would be important as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree. I think a survey with the students and some focus groups with our students is on the list for sure.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to hear that you're planning to survey families, and I look forward to hearing about, I really am looking forward to hearing about that in your recommendation. I would also just ask that as you're thinking through this with your team and getting ready to make a recommendation to us, you know, if part of this decision is based on our ability to cohort, and I know there's a concern at the high school that we're less able to cohort our students than we are in K-8, that maybe we take a look at what some other districts around us are doing to solve that problem, and take that into account as you figure out what your recommendation is for us.
Got it. Yep, for sure.
Okay, next is Director of Student Services.
Dylan, can you unmute Dawn Davis?
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. I'm just going to give you some updates on where we are student services across the district, both in person and virtual. And then I can entertain any questions as we go on. And I'm going to caution everybody, these numbers are not written in stone. We still have students that are incoming. We have students whose IEPs haven't made it to us because they're new students, and we're working on transfer of paperwork. But right now we have 218 students with IEPs in the district, 90 students with 504 plans, 43 students that are English learners, 12 outplaced students. That means they're attending state-approved special ed programs outside of Portland, and 1 student with an IEP attending a magnet school. So our numbers really have changed with the magnet school placements. We are still in the process of screening our newest students that have indications in their registration that they could possibly be an English language learner, an EL student. So those numbers, the 43, are the students that moved from last year into this year with identification. So that number could go up quite a bit based upon the screenings and the last links screen that we have to do with those students. Additionally, this is probably the messiest IEP year I've ever seen in my career because of the shutdown. The fact that we were, if parents and parents and the team agreed to postpone the PPT until we were back in school in session, we were able to do that, which means we have a lot of IEPs that we need now to, PPT meetings we need to hold and get those individual education plans caught up now that we have some baseline information on our students. So that's where we are with numbers. When I meet with you again next month, they'll be more concrete because we'll have passed the October 1st data upload to the state, and we should have at that point everything ironed out as far as missing paperwork or new students still in transition. I just want to give a brief update on our special programs within district. Our ABA lab is up and running. Many of the students in the ABA lab, even though we're in a once again in that hybrid model, many of those students, which are some of our most impacted socially, emotionally, and developmentally, are able to come in all 4 days because they're their own cohort. They don't mix with both cohort A and cohort B, or red or blue, whatever each school calls them. So those students, fortunately, are able to get really in-depth services and get most of their related services delivered in person as well. The RISE program at Gildersleeve, once again, we've got a couple of kids that are coming in 4 days a week, and lots of good work going in there if they're able to cohort, stay in that individualized cohort. The Bridge program, which is our new program at Brownstone, is up and running. Last I heard, we have 5 or 6 students in there. The staff is acclimated really nicely, and they're moving along very well. It's very exciting to see that program go from a plan to a reality. Wheeler Clinic, the CLP program, is up and running. They're just about at full capacity. I think they got room for one more student. And I also want to point out, Wheeler Clinic, the clinicians in that program are helping us out because our caseload for our school-based social work clinician person was really, really big. And we knew it was a tough budget year. We weren't able to budget for a second social worker, but what we've been able to do is kind of pick away at her caseload and share that wealth amongst some other peoples. And the Wheeler clinicians are 2 of those people that are helping to make that so that our caseloads can be a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable, and yield the best results. And then Life Skills is our last program that is specialized and self-contained. Those students also are coming in 4 days a week because they are within their own cohort there. So they're able to get caught up on a lot of skills that they weren't able to, or a lot of services that were harder to access across the internet. So I just wanted to just to refresh everybody's memory on the specialized programs. Our staffing status is really, really healthy right now. As you remember, we added a few new positions, the new special ed teacher for the Bridge program, the clinician in the Bridge program, as well as a new BCBA. That new BCBA, her name is Sarah Mclaughlin. She's wonderful. She has going from having a contractor that we call in when there's a problem to having a dedicated member of our staff that focuses on the analysis and collection of information and helping to shape behavioral needs is phenomenal. 2 things that she's looked at district-wide just in the few short weeks we've been in session is she's focused on kids that are having difficulty wearing masks, because we know it's a reality. We know that for some of our, especially our younger kids or our children that are dealing with things like sensory needs, having something on their face, whatever that issue is, she's been focusing on that type of behavior and supporting teachers and paraeducators and principals to understand and come up with plans for that. I was so ecstatic to hear about been able to increase his mask wearing more and more every day. And when I met with this parent over the summer, she says, I don't think he'll ever wear a mask. I don't know how I'm ever going to get him to school. And, with Sarah's work as well as the students' team has been phenomenal. The other place that Sarah's been working with the administrative team and some of the other service providers is the area of executive function, organization, the whole idea of being able to be focused, organized, and switching between an in-person model and a online model, and also for our students that are in the virtual learning academy. So she's been supporting us with ideas and tools. And then the last thing about our staffing is it's really exciting to see how our staff is supporting students, our related services peoples are supporting students both in-home for families that are opting into in-home learning. The children, when they're in their home learning days as part of the hybrid model, and our students when they're in school. So they're really wearing multiple hats, but the case managers and the principals really wanted to make sure that the children, especially the children that were in the PVLA, that they're making sure that they have the same case manager. Because we know at some point they're going to come back to us, and we didn't want to switch case managers because those people are the experts on those students, their needs, their plans, their performance abilities, all of that. So that's been really important. It does kind of, I had a special ed teacher, one of our brand new special ed teachers, tell me the other day, she says, I just don't know if I'm coming or going. I don't know if I should be on my computer in front of a class. She says, it's a little crazy, but it's, you know, I have to applaud them. They're doing a beautiful job. Another update I wanted to give everybody at the last board meeting, Dr. Britton spoke about the AR versus Connecticut State Board of Ed ruling, and it was upheld in a higher court. So that does affect our students' exit time when they are, the past practice had been throughout Connecticut had been when a child reaches 21, the following June after their 21st birthday, they exit out and transition to adult services if they're not fully college career ready and life ready. But now what's happened with this new ruling is it was found inappropriate that Connecticut was using the 21st birthday and the time after the 21st birthday, that we have to be giving services till their 22nd birthday. So if that child's 22nd birthday is December, they have services with us up until their birthday, not ending the later in the previous at June at the end of the school year. So what I wanted to bring everybody's attention to is from a district standpoint and a student standpoint. At this point, we don't have any students that left us in June that want to come back. We were directed to have conversations with families that were in that role, in that position, and right now we only had one student that left in that manner, and they opted to stay with the adult services they had set up. So, and we'll be monitoring that carefully, and any guidance coming from the state about past students and compensatory services and things like that. So you'll be hearing from Dr. Britton or myself more on that as the months roll out. Since school was beginning, I did hold an online parent meeting. It was a Google Meet, and we had 40 families that participated. It was a great discussion. I got to really point out my deficiencies in doing a Google Meet classroom. I really, once again, applaud our teachers because it's not something I do every day. So I was quite clumsy at it, but it was great discussions, great questions. Those meetings are by invitation only. They're not open to the public like something like this is, just because it's a protected group of people. But I will send information out to the Board of Ed if anybody would like to join. And I think for this year, these are probably going to take the place of our parent forum, which used to meet in person once a month. Many parents said because it will be online, they'd love to participate, whereas trying to get kids down for dinner time and then come back out for a meeting is a little more daunting. So our next meeting is on the 22nd of September, and that's to all parents that have a student that has either an IEP or a 504 plan are inviting. Two last little things. One is Mari Wrightington continues to work with the Student Services Department, work with myself, and she's working with the rest of the administrators. Consultant that we hired to help us get the Bridges program off the ground. She's also working with me and the mental health team and looking at our service delivery as we're both growing in staff, but also growing in need with coming back to school. So she's been a great asset. She and I have a meeting again on Thursday, and she's sitting in on our mental health team meetings. And the last one is just around funding. Our IDEA grant is all in place and all set for this year, as well as Title III is coming out, and that's the funding, some of the funding that helps offset our EL learner costs. So just a brief update. If there's any questions, please let me know.
I do have two. You gave a number at the very beginning before you said 90 with 504s. I heard 2, but I didn't hear the rest of it. I just want to make a note. How much is that?
218.
And 18, thank you. And then the other question that I have is, in all of these programs, I know we had some counselors coming in from the community health center. Is that identified? I'm going to shoot my dog in a minute. I don't know what she's barking at. If you could talk to the community health center counselors that are coming, over to assist some of the students that are dealing with some of the mental health issues. I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So
Thank
Community Health Center, CHC, we partner with them for school-based mental health services. Those are different than the services that our school staff provide. This is the school-based mental health services through CHC are designed to give students an opportunity to see a licensed clinician the same way they would if mom and dad picked them up from school and took them across the river to the CHC office. This is not a school service. This is a CHC service that they're providing to students in our schools. And we do have staff, we have CHC staff in all of our buildings. But the parent, it goes through a referral process. The parents have to sign on and give permission for the CHC clinician to treat the student. And they usually work more on things that are more social, emotional in nature, not just around school. So it could be family things. It could be things that the child's dealing with, depression, anxiety, things like that. Whereas our school-based social workers are more working on helping them access the school environment, helping them access the responsibilities of a student, the needs of a student. For example, IEP goals and objectives that are required, we are required to provide those services as part of the student's plan. Those services cannot be met by a CHC counselor. Those have to be done by a school-based counselor. But if a child, for example, was having depression because, they're diagnosed with depression and they're really struggling with some personal things, that's a lot deeper than a regular school-based social worker would work on. And that's something that a clinician would work on with the student in school. It really helps the student and the family have that person that they can see during the school day instead of having to wait until, 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings. That's the only way they're able to see that clinician. Okay, does that help, Meg? Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So we have a new full-time BCBA on staff, and remind me, is Mari Wrightington also a BCBA?
Mari's a school psychologist.
She's a school psychologist. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mari's not on staff. She's just contracting with us for a number of hours this school year.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. Well, you guys know where to find me if you have questions or want to follow up on anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to new business. 2020-2021 Portland Board of Education goals.
So we spoke about these during our retreat last week. I'd ask you to take a look at them, think about them, kind of marinate or ruminate on them, and if you're comfortable with them, great. If you have any other questions about them tonight, I'd be happy to entertain them. But I think that this sets a really important vision for the district, an approach that's gonna hopefully get us through COVID pretty quickly and expediently. And then I think this also sets some really nice long-term 5-10 year initiatives for us, and we started a very important conversation this afternoon, which you'll hear about later tonight too.
I think it's fine. I think the revisions that we had talked about and that you had made look good.
I do as well. I could vote on them.
Me as well.
Same.
Yeah.
Motion?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Laurel. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2020-2021 Portland Board of Education goals.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Great, thank you.
All right. Next is policy 6159, individualized education program, special education program. It's our first reading. That policy. Either Meg or Charles, could you point out what the new, what's new here?
Actually, well, Charles
Is it
could
just
do
the
it,
red area?
or
the
Dawn
red
could address it if she could come back on. She's the one who updated this policy.
Oh,
This actually goes back to February. This was our last meeting before the pandemic
oh,
closure.
This
I
was
don't have-
revised because of a public act change. You could see it in
It
the
was,
legal
exactly,
references, and then they only changed the language necessary to comply with the public act.
exactly.
Yeah, the changes are in red too, if you want.
And they're in red.
I don't have a color printer.
Oh,
Oh, so that's all black and white to me.
yeah, I'll give you mine.
And I don't really, well, anyway. So it's basically just a,
It's a language update and just a
Okay.
legislative update. We get a lot of this
yep, yep,
from
okay.
from
Charles
policy. Yep.
provided me the red.
Mhm.
Oh, good.
Okay,
It was interesting, they felt the need to put in any employee who makes a recommendation, can't be disciplined or punished. You have to figure there must have been cases where,
There are some that I'm aware of too. There-
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
A lot of
so
history
it's
there.
down for our first reading.
Mhm.
Any other questions, concerns?
I saw I was unmiked. Was there a question for me?
Only that somebody was asking about the update on the special ed policy that was hanging over from when you and I talked the other day, the one that had not been updated for language because of legislation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so it's a first reading, Dawn. Thank you.
No questions or issues, comments, none?
no.
Okay, well, I guess then,
Second read.
we can put it down for a second reading, or I guess we could just move to accept it.
We could do that. Do we have to suspend the rules for that, or is there anything special we have to do?
No, there's nothing that ties us to having two readings, but usually the policy committee looks at it, puts it out, and then gives everybody an opportunity over a period of a couple of weeks to ask questions or look at it. In this case, it's a legislative change, so we could vote to accept it tonight.
Oh, I'll entertain a motion if anybody feels comfortable moving forward, or we can put it down for a second reading. Either way.
I'll make a motion that we accept the, I don't have the number in front of me, the policy regarding special ed changes as presented tonight.
6159, Meg.
Thank you, 6759.
6159.
He's
Yeah,
right.
I would
Angler,
second
second?
that.
Jim?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
any
I
other
would,
discussion?
no.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, that's unanimous. Wonderful. Right, we'll move on to old business. Update on fall athletics.
All right, Dylan, can you unmute Chris Sarah for us? So Chris is with us. He will be joining me and able to answer any questions, maybe with a more granular precision than I can provide you. But I certainly know a lot about this. It's taken a lot of time to try to dial this in. So, as you know, athletics this fall is difficult. Right? There's a lot of changes and a lot of expert advice and recommendations, and it's kind of all over the place. The reason it's all over the place is there's no Connecticut State Board of Education, Connecticut State Department of Education executive order. There's no order on what we must do to have sports conducted safely, and because of that, every district is doing things a little bit different, right? I mean, as soon as you leave it out there for some level of interpretation, in Connecticut with 169 different school districts, you'll often get 169 different ways of doing it. So what we've done here in Portland is through the work of our reopening committee, our leadership team, and then lots of discussions is we've really grounded our recommendations in guidelines put forth by the Connecticut Department of Public Health. So I gave you a recommendation tonight, and I want to walk you through it, and I want to answer any questions that you have about it, and it comes with a recommendation at the end. But I want to start with what are those guidelines that the Connecticut Department of Public Health has put forward, and then what how are we interpreting those guidelines, and what is it about those guidelines that Chris and I and our coaches believe if we implement them with the fidelity that they need to be implemented with, we will maximize the opportunity for a safe fall season. So the first DPH guideline recommended that all athletics be postponed until 2 weeks after the start of the school year. And the logic behind that was that school districts are encouraged to prioritize getting students back in classrooms safely, and then study the efficacy of the mitigation strategies in the district and learn from those and use those to determine if those mitigation strategies are successful. So I reported to you at the beginning of the meeting that we have had 0 positive cases in the district so far. Now, this is no guarantee that that's going to change, but we have had that 2-week window. We have now been able to see the influence of cohorting, social distancing, mask wearing, cleaning, and the related protocols that we have in place. And I think we've satisfied that expectation that we sort of take a pause, see how it goes with kids in classroom for the first 2 weeks, and if it's going well, then make a decision about athletics. So I'm comfortable that we've adhered to guideline 1. The second guideline that the Department of Public Health has recommended is that you limit the total number of games in a season, and that you try to keep those games as locally as possible. So Chris, can you just bring us up to speed on where the league is with respect to the schedules and with respect to what the travel and then the hosting of teams would look like with our surrounding communities?
So in our AD meeting last week, we discussed the schedule thoroughly, and it's not out yet, but should be out within the next 2 days. We gave the go-ahead to our league scheduler to input them to the CIAC, which would mean in soccer we would play every team in the conference once, and for a cross country it would be dual meets only, and we would start by playing the closest schools first, so teams like East Hampton, Cromwell, and then as the time goes on and as these numbers keep showing what they're showing, then we would extend out to further into the conference like Old Lyme, Old Saybrook. As far as at home, when teams come to us, we have X's on the sidelines, 6 feet apart. We've taken the benches away for soccer, and kids are putting their equipment and personal belongings there, and they would be sitting on the sideline separated with their masks on. All that student athletes have been doing a wonderful job of that. And as far as bathroom facilities, our trainer brings in student athletes who need to use the bathroom on an individual basis, and then the custodians are thoroughly cleaning the inside bathrooms. So I feel as a school and as a league, we are well prepared to move forward, but let me just put this caveat out there. The 21st is when we are supposed to go to the next phase of athletic practices and moving to games later on in September, but we are still waiting for CIAC and DPH to confirm that.
So then that takes us to the third recommendation.
Oh, I had a quick question
sure.
for Chris.
Yes.
So what are the reporting requirements for the teams? How are we going to know, say, if we have a match coming up for us with the Cromwell soccer team, and is there an obligation between the schools to report if there's a issue or they're closing or there's a positive test or whatever?
Yes, we're in consistent contact daily basis with the ADs. And obviously, if there was a positive case at any of our schools, the entire league would know it. And, we'd end up losing those games, obviously, but obviously health and safety is first. But we would get that right away. And, it's very important that we do our contact tracing, and every day before practice, our trainer hands our coaches a sheet to go through all the symptoms, and the schools in the shoreline are doing the same thing. So we are on top of how our student athletes are feeling, and if there's any, significant cases to report, we would be in direct contact with all the ADs, and I'm sure the principals would be right on the horn too.
Chris, has there been any conversation about virtual meets for cross country so that there's, to reduce the potential of cross cohorting unintentionally?
In our, that's a good question. In our league, no. But there has been discussion at the CIAC, but nothing in concrete about that. It's the same with swimming. There's been discussion of doing virtual meets in terms of not having other teams come in to the pool area and just doing virtual where you're able to time. But as far as our league, we would stick with doing dual meets at the moment, but that discussion is still ongoing at the CIAC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our third guideline from the DPH suggests that locker rooms be limited where possible, and that strict cleaning protocols be in place. So Chris and I spoke, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would not be using the locker rooms at all. Is that correct?
Correct, at the moment, yes.
So we do have a bathroom for the students to use, but we would ask our students to arrive at practice changed and ready to go. And other teams arriving here would also be prepared to get off the bus and start the competition and wouldn't need to access the locker rooms.
That has been confirmed by all the ADs, and we are in agreement of that.
So guideline 4 from the DPH recommends, again, with proper mitigation strategies in place. And those are pretty well laid out by the CIAC, and they involve the social distancing and the mask wearing and the other strategies, hand washing and sanitizing, that we do consider allowing indoor and outdoor fall sports identified as lower risk by the National Federation of State School Associations Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. And in Connecticut, that means for us, the girls and boys cross country and girls swimming, that we do allow those to go forward. And then,
So where's soccer?
that's coming next.
Okay.
Okay, and then the fifth and final DPH recommendation 5 is that, again, also with proper education and mitigation strategies in place, that the districts consider allowing indoor fall sports identified as moderate risk by the NFHS MAC, which is the National State High School Association Sports Medicine Advisory Council. And those include boys and girls soccer, to allow those to go forward as well. So Chris, I'm not sure if you want to add anything, but to the extent that we are confident that we can adhere to these guidelines, our recommendation, and it's below in the memo, is that you authorize us to move forward with boys and girls cross country, and allow us to move forward with boys and girls soccer, and allow us to move forward with girls swimming. And that in the area of football, which is considered high risk, DPH is still not advising that football go forward, but that we are allowed to continue conditioning and team building activities with the football team, but not to allow full contact practices or any kinds of football, as 11-on-11 full contact games this fall.
And our football team is practicing in our facility, and the football coach is traveling over to us and conditioning our athletes, and then heading back over and conducting practice or conditioning with Cromwell. So our kids are still in line with the co-op in terms of what they're doing for conditioning, which is great.
And Chris, can you just talk a little bit about, for girls swimming, the commitment we have from Rocky Hill to provide us our own swimming lane and otherwise limit our exposure to the Rocky Hill team?
So I've had discussions with the coach, Coach Cooney, and they've been more than gracious over the years with our girls going over there to swim. It's a great opportunity, and we have been guaranteed that it would be one lane and the Cromwell swimmers would also be over there in one lane, and then the Portland swimmers would have their own lane to socially distance properly, so our girls can have that opportunity to continue their swimming adventure.
And that the last commitment you have from Chris, from me, and certainly from Kate Lawson is that we will be keeping a very close eye on this. And in the instant that we ever had a concern that transmission rates were up or that our students were in any way at an enhanced risk, and there's no risk, but I'll say an enhanced risk, we would immediately intervene and not allow those practices or games to go forward.
May I just make one comment? It is wonderful to see our coaches, our student athletes out there looking out for one another and, practicing social distancing. We have meeting areas for every team before they get out to condition. And the student athletes know to foam in with hand sanitizer. And then when practice is over, foam out. And it's just great to see, you expect nothing more from the Portland community than what our student athletes and coaches are doing this fall to abide by these social distancing rules, as well as take care of each other. Obviously everyone's been chomping at the bit to get back together, but they're doing it in a safe manner. And I'm very proud of these athletes and these coaches.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Oh, but do we need to support this recommendation? Because if we do, I'd be happy to do that. I think it's well thought out.
Got a motion?
I could make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and the athletic department to authorize, and we can use the verbiage from the bottom of the document to move forward with the fall athletics season, et cetera, and recommendation 2, consistent with DPH guidelines, to not continue or to not allow football during the 2020 season. So those recommendations would be, both of them would be in the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, by Tim. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I want to say that I really appreciate all of the work that has gone into these recommendations. And clearly, Chris, you and your team have done a huge amount of work to figure out how to possibly make this work in a safe way. But I feel comfortable with the idea of our teams practicing here in Portland. I trust our athletic staff to do that in a safe way and to keep our students safe. But I keep going back to the Department of Public Health guideline language where they describe these athletic events as having either a low or a moderate risk. And I'm sitting here thinking that if our district is willing to take on additional risk, however small or moderate, for me, that risk should come in the form of returning our students to school. I don't think that the next risk that we should take on should be potentially cross-cohorting our students with other districts for athletics. And it's really hard to say this because I understand how important this is to our students. I understand how important this athletic season is. But the fact remains that half of our students are home every day. And so for me, that's where our first priority needs to be. So I won't be able to vote to support recommendation number 1.
My feelings are basically exactly the same as Laurel's. I see us kind of operating on a continuum in terms of what is the safest thing to do. And we agreed as a board that the safest thing to do was to start in a hybrid fashion. And it actually kind of turns my stomach a little bit to think that we're going to dive into athletics when we have families struggling so much at home to have their children home 3 days a week. And I believe that the priority of our district should be academics over athletics. And I say that as a parent of children who are playing athletics currently outside of school. I say that knowing how important sports are to children. I'm saying that because I truly believe it is most important for our children to be in the buildings. And I believe that that is the first step that we need to take towards a full reopening.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2 opposed. Okay, the motion passes. Next is policy 6172.61, distance learning plan due to health-based school closure, second reading. Any questions on that?
Not me.
I'll make a motion to accept 6172 distance learning plan as presented as
There a
the new
second?
policy.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
Just a quick question. We're accepting, am I clear that we're accepting this into our pandemic plan that is a subsection of our policy? Is that correct?
Yes.
Policy.
This would.
Does it say, what does it say on the top of it?
It says new policy.
Yeah, I think distance learning may be something that we do on a snow day. So I don't know that it would necessarily be
No, this
only
is
a pandemic policy.
But this is specific to health-based school closure, and we've talked several times about this. My understanding was that this policy was going to be part of our pandemic plan. I just need to be clear about where it's going.
It was not, it was part of an update in June of 2020, so it was not part of the pandemic planning. It was a distance learning plan, which includes pandemic planning, but it's not specific to pandemic planning. So it goes under instruction.
But okay.
This was an update from June 2020. It was item B or C on the list, but
Yeah.
so it was not part of the pandemics.
No,
Right.
I'm with you, but it is specific to health-based school closures. It's not specific to snow days or to anything else. So my understanding, Charles, maybe you can clarify. My understanding was that we wanted to have a subsection with mask policy and this policy and all the others that we've been looking at that could be its own unit.
Yeah, I understood that this was specific to health situations. It wouldn't be applicable to snow days. Or
That was my understanding as well when we.
It's in the title.
Emergency health.
First sentence says that.
yeah.
Okay. One at a time, please. So the policy states it's distance learning plan due to health-based school closure. And it's 6172.61.
Yeah, the reality is that I mean, if God forbid we had an outbreak of tuberculosis or mono or something else, this policy would, I believe, fall under that too. But more likely than not, it would be related to a pandemic.
No, it's not specifically limited to COVID though.
Correct.
Right.
It seems like
Not.
pandemic, epidemic, emergency
Yeah,
policies are separate.
Right.
So this is meant to be more permanent, should, God forbid, there be another different health emergency causing schools to close in the future. Is that right?
It also says for prolonged closures, and it doesn't specify health related under the attendance part. So there may be some conflict of language here. But I believe that the CABE update was to have a policy for distance learning. Maybe we should take the distance learning plan due to health-based school closures out and then leave it as a instructional policy rather than try to put it into a pandemic. It follows the instruction policy catalog of the 6,000s.
But the stated goals of the distance learning program in this document the goals are specific to if and when a pandemic negatively impacts the district's ability to maintain daily operations. I I just wanted to be clear. I'm not trying to make a thing. I support this policy. It's a good policy. We need it in this moment. I'm just curious because we've brought this up now multiple times, both in the policy committee and here, that there are going to be a handful of policies we need to adopt, and that we didn't necessarily want them sitting and cluttering up our policy indefinitely. But that it was useful to have a functioning set of policies in the event that something like this arises in the future. I just wanted clarification. I'm wondering what your plan is, or what you suggest.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is we never came to consensus around that. This one I think is important to have because, you know, God forbid there was a tuberculosis or some other, you know, thing in the future. This could be helpful in terms of responding to that. But certainly in this current period, it's helpful. We never kind of put a special tab or a special section. We never worked that out in the policy committee about whether these would come out. You know, this is one I think that could stay in because there may be situations that again, mono or I don't know what other things might be.
Maybe that's a broader issue that the policy committee could look at once we're through this period and go back and look at the policies that we've enacted and see how useful have they been. Do they have future usefulness? Should we keep it? Should we not? Because this one is different in that if you look at the face mask covering, which is the next one, it's
got a different title
as an emergency policy.
Right.
Wearing face masks as opposed to a distant. This one doesn't say it's an emergency policy. So maybe it could be enacted as is and revisited after, hopefully like next month when this is over.
Yes, God willing.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for clarifying.
Any other comments, questions? Was the motion, I know the motion was made, was it seconded?
It was Tim. I made it. Tim seconded it.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay. Next is policy 4118.237, emergency policy on wearing face masks / coverings. And this is down for a first reading.
And this applies to students and all employees, visitors, contractors. So there's 3 different numbers on here, but it all applies to masks.
There is
and there was
one.
a lot of work that went into it, and I think that it gave us a policy. We have taken out some of the extraneous language that was already dealt with in the reopening committee plan, which has something to do with transportation and cafeteria or eating food in schools. So this is strictly just masks, but I think it's a very good policy. I'm really proud of what the committee did on it. And if it's a good policy, it's going to be related to pandemic issues only. So obviously we won't be wearing masks for other things, hopefully. But I recommend that we pass it tonight so that parents and teachers and everybody will know exactly what face masks are approved and all the whys and wherefores of wearing them. So I think it's a good policy.
The only comment I had was in reference to the certified and non-certified staff. On the 3rd page, it says employees who refuse to wear a mask or face covering at school or a school function under this emergency policy shall be subject to discipline consistent with district policy. And I just wondered if there should also, it should also reference the various collective bargaining agreements and the disciplinary part of those.
We can add that. That would make sense. We can add that language in.
That was it for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point.
I found one, I think, typo on, and Meg, nice job in this. I know you put a lot of effort into this, and it
Well,
shows.
I just took what I could find from all the powers that be, and it was there was some conflicting information. Laurel also worked on it and did some wordsmithing, so I think we have a very good policy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. But you did as well. What did you find?
On the top of the 2nd page, that first full paragraph, it's a silly thing, but it's just a typo. It's like where the last sentence there, it has bandanas, neck gaiters, and masks with, it should be built in.
Yeah.
Oh, with built-in, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we can add the word built-in near the vented
Just
masks.
replace build with built.
Okay. And then we'll also add, as per our contracts, our employee contracts.
And the citations on the top there, it's P4118.237, but it's also, then it says 42.
That's because one is certified and we combine a lot of times non-certified. So 411 and 421, whatever the ending is. I don't have it in front of me right now. That is certified and non-certified staff. And then the student one is the 41.
Oh, the P51.
5141.
4118. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And no reg with it. There's no regulation, thank goodness.
Right.
So did you want to make a motion to accept this tonight
I would with the two
Those-
recommendations for changes
as amended?
as amended. So I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Laurel, any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Amen. We put that one to bed.
Thank you all for your work on that. That wasn't easy.
Yeah, and I really thank the committee and Charles. It was, and also the administrators. Everybody had their input, so it was good. It's good policy.
I'm also encouraged with the reports from everybody that our students are taking this seriously and
Taking this
and
seriously.
not,
Yeah.
you know,
It's going really well.
That's good.
Knock on wood.
that's good. Okay, committee reports, curriculum.
We are having a meeting. Oh, man. Either we're having a meeting very soon or possibly I just missed one. So I'm going to have to look at that. I'm very sorry.
You can bring us up to speed next time.
I will do that.
Okay, policy, thank you all. I think we've heard.
I just want to add a thing about policy. We are going to try to upload CABE documents, updates electronically in the future, so we don't end up with a lot of paper, for one thing. And Charles has now narrowed down with me the other day 7 policies which are mandated or strongly suggested. And so we're going to work on those, and we're going to look forward to another update in November from CABE. And we're going to go forward rather than try to backtrack and go backwards. And I think everybody will be relieved on the policy committee to get rid of 15 different packages of paper at this point. So we're going to work, and we're setting up some meetings now so that by the 15th, we will have cleared the deck of the old policies that are hanging over our heads and be able to move forward. So I think that was a real positive going forward.
A lot of work.
A lot of work.
It was, because we, normally the policies would be for an average normal school year, and the pandemic has forced us to look at things that that you could only dream of or imagine or read in a science fiction book, a novel.
Can I just jump in real quick? I got concerned that I missed the meeting today. It is next Tuesday, so I will report at our next meeting.
All right, great. Thank you. That's curriculum. Okay, personnel. We have a little bit of lull in our action. I think the committee will be starting to review some contracts maybe after the first of the year. We have some negotiations that'll be coming up more towards the end of the school year. So I think we'll get a jump on that and try to prepare a little bit. But nothing else to report tonight. Building and grounds. I understand we have a special report from Carl.
Can we unmute
I think
Carl?
Yep, Carl.
There he is. You're muted, Carl. I don't know if you muted you or if we muted you.
Dylan, can you unmute Carl? And Carl, you may be muted on your screen. Do you see that little button down there at the very bottom left that says unmute? There you go. You're in. Oh, you're still muted.
I'm still muted.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Okay, so today we met Sightlines commit the Sightlines company and the Buildings and Grounds Committee, Charles and Stephanie, and we went through the draft of the report. I think looked pretty well, and they're gonna do some finishing up touches to that, and also give me the list of specific items that weren't complete yet of all the repairs and everything like that that would be recommended. I am going to forward tomorrow to all of the board members the initial draft report that we went over today. And then I think our goal would be to try to get this maybe to a meeting like the second meeting in October, I think, which is the third week.
Okay. All right. We'll just have to try to probably keep that meeting pretty sparse aside from this.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we'll have a lot to talk about.
A lot to
That'd be the
talk about.
the 20th.
Unless you guys wanted to do another night with a special meeting,
Do a special meeting.
specific to that. It is going to be quite lengthy.
Okay, so maybe after the board gets to take a look at the initial draft, we can maybe set aside a date at our first meeting in October for a special meeting later in the month. Would that work, Carl?
I think that would work. Would you agree, Charles?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll have Meg start working on a date for us sometime between the
Okay.
first and the second meeting in October.
And it'll be in mind that that's there's going to be a lot going on that week.
There's going to be a lot.
How about the
maybe
week
the last
after?
week. Yeah, the last week in October maybe would be better.
Okay.
But
One point though they made was we did throw out the idea, do we want to include the Board of Selectmen because this company is going to give us one more presentation, not several. So, or do we want to just do it to the Board of Education and we take it upon ourselves to do the presentation to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, that's something to think about. The other thing is that this remains a confidential document at this point because we haven't put it out to everybody. So when you get it, there's nothing in it that's awful, but there's a list of projects that Carl is going to get that are very specific that the Building and Grounds Committee will meet and talk about and kind of prioritize. So when we meet, we'll have a lot more answers than we have tonight. It's a very long, intricate report, and it's very good.
okay, so maybe we can explore that more at our first meeting in October and decide if that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah, the Buildings and Grounds Committee is going to meet one more time shortly. I think we're waiting for Carl to get the updated list of the X factors. Was that what it was, Carl? And then the specific list, and then Buildings and Grounds is going to meet one more time too. So,
all right,
we have a little more information to go over.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Carl.
Anything else or no?
Well, there'll probably be a lot more after tomorrow
Yes.
when we get to look at the report.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions at this point? No? All right, thank you.
Okay, have a good night.
You too. Conservation and Renewable Task Force?
Nothing at this time.
Nothing? Okay, how about our CREC liaison?
There's a meeting tomorrow, and there is a little bit of drama going on because CREC has received some information from the Federal Office of Civil Rights that has determined that 3 grant recipients, which are Enfield, Learning, Groton, and New Haven, are out of compliance with our Title IX policy, or the policy that we just accepted. It involves transgendered students participating in the sport, and I guess it stems from some cross-country students who have joined the girls cross-country team at these schools. The Federal Office of Civil Rights says that the the grant that they get for about $3 million would be canceled, and that those schools would not be able to participate in CIAC teams or sporting events. So it's kind of dramatic right now. It looks like the director of CREC is holding his ground and saying, nope, we're going to allow people to play. We're not going to limit people or start special teams. So we'll see what happens, but I'll go to the meeting tomorrow to find out. And I'll hear about the opening of the magnet schools and the CREC schools up in Hartford.
I have just one quick question. So are you saying that the federal government is canceling their grants because
going to
they
withhold,
are
yep,
allowing
right,
transgender people to participate on
the
opposed to-
whatever their assigned gender is,
Okay.
not their birth gender,
was
but
a-
their assigned
Got it.
gender.
as
Yeah.
opposed to preventing them from,
Right,
so they're being penalized for allowing them to participate.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
So more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, Board of Selectmen?
It was kind of a short meeting. Basically, they're working on a couple grants. One for the fire department breathing apparatus, which they've got awarded. We're just gonna have to do a small matching, and then another grant they're working on to replace some water pipes down on one of the streets that continually has issues. And then the other thing was the racial equity, diversity, and inclusion to continue to work on forming that group or committee, whatever they call it, and looking for volunteers to form that committee.
Okay. Audience of citizens, do we have anyone looking to address us? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't. Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth Trojanowski at 77 Old Marlboro Turnpike. I'm sorry, I know I spoke earlier, but I have also another kind of radical suggestion that I would like to throw out there for consideration. In the past, I know that regionalization has been a dirty word. However, I feel like, we have never considered joining forces with other districts in this post-pandemic context. Previously, one of the biggest points of contention with regionalization was busing kids to surrounding towns. Post-COVID learning has put an end to that, to this kind of cross exposure. But there's no reason why we couldn't consider a possible sharing of distance learning or remote learning responsibilities. So this would allow us to combine forces and ease some of the pressures on teachers. That may, or hopefully, possibly allow some room in our budget, which I know is very stretched thin, but teachers who work both in person and remotely are feeling the impact, and resources are very, very limited. Google Classroom and Seesaw are merely organizational platforms that help in the delivery and collection of assignments, materials, and information only. They're not a means to aid in remote instruction. I don't know, I'm sorry, it's late. Instruction. There are programs out there. One program is called Nearpod, and it really addresses motivation, student engagement. It has dynamic activities that can be inserted to the stockpile of presentations that teachers already have and use. It also has a library of pre-created lessons. It's very easy to use. It's intuitive. It can enhance teaching both in person and distance learning. It's a great resource. It certainly costs money, and we don't seem to have any. But if we start to share resources, teachers and students could really benefit, and this could be a solution to really helping to supply teachers with some of the resources that they need. So considering the idea of some sort of regionalization, and again, we're talking about, distance learning here. So it doesn't necessarily need to be towns that are surrounding us, but really opens up other towns throughout Connecticut that would be interested in some sort of a possible partnership where we can, share some of those resources and provide teachers with great programs like Nearpod so that they can really enhance their instruction and provide real lessons rather than just having, Google Classroom and Seesaw, which isn't a means. It's just a way to deliver and collect assignments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
No? All right.
No.
Board of Education member comments.
I'll start. I would like to extend a thank you to Sue Rowe for her many, many years of service for Portland Public Schools. Sue was probably the first person in district that I ever spoke to when we moved into Portland. So thank you so much, Sue. I know you'll be greatly missed. And then I just have a comment. I had emailed the board for those of you who are on the meeting. I'd emailed the board and superintendent tonight because I haven't been able to access my documents, even coming up to a few hours before the meetings. And lo and behold, there they were. This has happened a couple of times though, the past several meetings. I'm getting all of my Dropboxes it's just showing up a few hours before a meeting instead of days in advance. So I'm just kind of curious if there's a possibility. Obviously I have some sort of glitch going on, but could we be having a discussion maybe about moving to Google Drive? I mean, just because we are a Google school and it seems that it is a little bit more, gosh, I really can't speak well right now. I'm so tired. It just seems like it works better. I find Google Drive works better. So curious about that. And then about surveying families, Charles, I would just ask that you please include questions for families of young children about childcare specifically and how especially parents of elementary students, where their children are in care. Are they at Ingersoll? Are they at daycare? Are they with grandparents? Are they with other families within the district or outside of the district? I feel like that's probably important information to have if we're going to be considering staying in a hybrid model. And also I would ask that if you are intending to survey teachers, which I don't know if you are or not, I would love to see the breakdown on what teachers' preferences are based by, if not by building, but by, middle school, high school separately from elementary teachers to see if there's, differences in opinion between faculty and staff at different age levels.
Got it.
Thanks.
Tim, anything?
No, I would just say thank you, Charles, for all you've been doing and keeping things going. And, obviously thanks to the staff and the certified and non-certified folks. And it's tough to keep going, but and you take a lot of hits, a lot of criticism. And there's, the reason for that is everybody's in a different situation, and it's tough. It's just a very tough thing, no matter which kind of schooling your kids are doing. And I think Portland's putting our best foot forward and doing what we need to do.
Meg?
I agree. I like Lauren's suggestions, and I also agree, with Tim. I want the teachers to know that we support them 1,000%. This is not an easy job for anybody, and we just want to thank them and give them hugs virtually right now.
Air hugs.
Yep, air hugs. Yep.
Chris?
Just same thing. I want to thank the teachers and let them know that we all support them and they've been doing a great job. This is really tough. And also Charles and your team for kind of keeping everybody informed and in the loop, and really looking forward to working through the report we looked at earlier today and the Building and Grounds Committee. It's pretty exciting.
Exciting.
Dave?
Yeah, same thing. Thanks to everyone for the hard work. I'm not a teacher and I could never imagine what you guys must go through. So hands off, appreciate everything you guys do. And ditto to Chris, the same thing about the Building and Grounds. I mean, it's not going to be a huge surprise. We all kind of knew some of this from our last several, meetings and our capital stuff for the budgets and things like that. So it's not going to be a, oh my God, but it's finally putting it to some kind of a structure and some dollars to it and some timelines to it. So I think that'll just help our conversation that we need to have when we put together our, 1 year, 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan type of thing.
Great. Laurel?
I don't think I have anything much to add. I have a lot of gratitude for our teachers and our staff and our administrative team right now. I like Lauren's suggestions, and I hope this can be included in the surveys that you're working on, Charles. And also just, for any parents who are still hanging out on this call, to know that we see you and know that this is really hard, and that a lot of folks are really struggling. And I just would encourage parents who and caregivers who are struggling to continue to reach out to our administrators in the district to get the support that they need, because this is not easy.
I agree with everything everyone said and would share those sentiments as well. And I'm glad to hear that our students are acknowledging and understanding the seriousness of the situation, and we're not having any big issues with compliance with masks or anything else. I think that's great to hear. Our community comes together and works together through hard things, and this is what we're doing now. So that's great. I'm glad to hear it all.
On that happy note, I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:42.
For a second,
I'll second that.
Tim, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you
Go
all.
home, everybody. Safe
Have a good
travels
night.
if you're
Thank
getting in a
you.
car to go somewhere.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
I didn't kill my dog, by the way. I promise. I
Oh,
just gave
good.
her a marrow bone. She's happy right now.